So welcome everyone. So after receiving a lot of requests for a demonstration on Xray Cloud, here we are, and we have Helder with us who would be providing you an in-depth walkthrough of the tool and then answer any of your queries. So if you have any queries between the demo, feel free to type those questions in the chat and then Helder can take them later. So it's all over to you, Helder. You can start.
Okay, you got it. Once again, thanks a lot for this invitation. Once again, I really had enjoyed last year. And this year, I'm bringing you basically the same thing. So there will be some topics that will be overlap with what we had last year. Nonetheless, I will be showing you cloud. I'll also be looking at some of the new features that we've introduced into Xray. And also, as requested, dive a bit deeper into the document generated reports. So taking that into account, and once again, during the session, we'll be looking at why Jira for quality assurance. We'll look at the overview of the test management within Jira using Xray. And I'll take it that most of you are unfamiliar with Xray, so it will be an intro right from the beginning, as if no one had the previous experience with Xray. We'll look at organizing, planning, and execution of your test cases, the reporting, which is a vital factor for QA, and any questions and answers you may have at the end. We'll certainly try to get them answered for you. And of course, this will be using a live demo that will concentrate on point 2, 3, and 4 here. So once again, Jira, and the facts are basically Jira is an awesome software development tool. Even though it can be used for any type of software development, it does provide you with some features for Agile, such as Scrum boards, Kanban boards. You can create your own issue types if you want. It does bring out of the box some quite a number of issues that you are free to use. You can customize workflows, add custom fields. It's great for defect management also. Includes great searching and filtering capabilities, especially when you rely on JQL. You can integrate it with its REST API. It is available on demand, or I should say cloud versions, as well as on premises. Now, Jira, or I should say Atlassian, no longer provides server licenses, but data center is identical in terms of features. So, and it has quite a number of new features there. And it also provides you advanced reporting. However, Jira as a test management tool is missing a few things, such as test-related artifacts, such as test cases, test plans, test executions. Now, we know that some customers of ours have even gone ahead and tried to implement these themselves. You certainly can. We've done this for you with Xray, so you get not only those issue types or related test-related artifacts, but you also get all the underlying logic that is necessary. It's also missing the visibility to see the test execution results, have requirements coverage, and also advanced reporting that is specific to quality assurance. So that's where Xray comes in. And if you look at Jira itself, basically great for requirement management all the way up to defect management, but it is lacking the test management. And this is where Xray fills in that gap that is there with Jira. And we are able to support both manual and automated tests, which means that you'll be using your own, if you're using automated tests, you'll be able to use your most common testing frameworks, or even have your own homegrown and then just adapt and push those results into Xray. So what is Xray? Xray is a test management application for Jira. We do have it available for data center, server, and cloud. We'll be concentrating on the cloud version today. We support both automated and manual tests. It is able to organize and plan your tests for you. You can also execute tests directly from within the application. I do have an asterisk here. I usually put this in the demos. because this is typically for manual test executions. However, since your automation test cases are typically triggered or run outside of Jira and Xray, and then the results are pushed into Xray. You can create Jira defects from within the app, and it also provides you with an awesome reporting functionality, and as well as a REST API that you can use to integrate with your external systems. However, we also provide plugins for some of the most commonly used CI/CD tools such as Jenkins and Bamboo. Now, if we take a look at the typical QA workflow, and there are many variations to this, as you surely know. The most simplest one is probably you write your tests and then you go ahead and you execute them. But typically you also organize, you plan the execution of these tests, even though there are quite a number of variations to this. I'll be following this workflow here, which is probably the most common one. What does Xray provide you with when you subscribe to Xray on Jira Cloud? Well, for writing tests, it will provide you with a test case and precondition issue types. So Xray will prepare these issue types that you can use in the projects that you opt to use Xray in. For organization, the test set. For planning purposes, the test plan issue type. And then for test execution and subtest execution are used for execution purposes. And one of the great things is that these are, in fact, also Jira issues. So everything with exception of test repository and test run, which are our internal structures to Xray, which we'll be looking at in a little while, they are Jira issues, which means that if you want to implement specific workflow, you can do that. You want to add custom fields, you can also do that to our Xray issue types. Maybe you want to customize your screens or integrate with other third-party applications. That's also perfectly fine with Xray. So this is one of the major advantages of using Xray. Not only is it a great tool, but the learning curve is reduced since everything is, in fact, very familiar to you since they are Jira issues. Okay. Now, what I'll be showing you during this demo, I'll be using an agile, I'll be using a Scrum board. So I'm assuming that most of you are also using that type of software development approach, which means that in most cases, your requirements will map onto stories and epics, but rest assured that Xray is able to treat any issue, Jira issue type, as an issue to be covered by tests. So it's done at the configurational level. So let's go straight into the live demo. I've added the remote demo here because we're not in local here. So let's dive into it. And for this, I'll be using my standard bookstore project, which I did last year, but in this time I'll be using the cloud to show this, where I have a story that I've already added a couple of tests. And these are the test types that Xray currently supports. A manual issue type, a manual test type, a BDD test type, or Cucumber or Gherkin language defined tests, and generic and structured type of tests. We'll be looking at each one of these types of tests. Also manual tests, in this case that I'll show you also has a precondition here. So if I jump over to my instance here, and let me just grab it here. Here is the story. I'm just looking at a standard Scrum board here, very simplified for this project here. And this is the story that we'll be looking at. Now, before I go into that, any project that is enabled with Xray, you will also see a testing board here. We'll take you to additional features of Xray. We'll get into that in just a little while. But let's dive into this particular story here, and let me open it up in a different tab so we have a bit more screen real estate. And I've already configured Xray to treat for this project the story issue type as an issue to be covered by tests. And this means that for this issue type within this project, Xray will basically add this test coverage pane here. I already see that this particular issue or requirement, if you want, story, is being tested by 5 different tests, and the current status is not okay. Now, Let's just say that I want to bring in another test that I have in my repository, which we'll look at later on. All I have to do here is basically say that I want to link in another issue. And in this case, it is, or this story is being tested by a specific issue. Now, I'm going to type in demo here because I'm preceding everything in this session with a keyword demo, so that later on, as we did last year, we can see in the reports what was done in the context of this session. So let me bring in this particular test case. So I'll just link it. And all of a sudden, I do have 6 tests. And all I have to do here is just refresh this. So that we see the 6 tests that I brought in. And there we go. So now we have 6 tests. This was a test that I brought in. I'll also show you this since this is a new feature that we have included in here. And what do I see? That the test execution status for this particular issue type or this particular story is considered not okay. Not okay because at least one of the tests has failed. We do have other other statuses that come out of the box. You can create your own based on these ones. The other ones are okay, meaning that all of the tests have passed. Not run, meaning that some of the tests have not yet been executed, as well as uncovered, which basically means that I have an empty list. So I have no tests that are covering a particular story, which means that's uncovered by tests. Now, I'm also looking in terms of analysis and scope, I'm looking at the latest execution for all my test environments. I can search for, do this analysis according to version, test plans, which we'll be looking at later on. So for example, if I choose the latest execution for my Chrome test environments are created by yourself. So I've created these, made sense at the time. So if I apply this, I do see that the status is not run. So for my latest execution, considering my Chrome test environment, the status is not run because I have not executed any of the tests according to this, stating that I'm testing the Chrome test environment. Let me just reset that so that we have something a bit more colorful here. And let me show you the 3 types of tests, as you notice here, the 3 types of tests that we support in terms of test specification. So for this, let me bring out this one, which is a manual test case. I'll also bring up a BDD test case, and also I'll use probably this one, okay, which is my standard robot test, which is invoking Selenium. So it's an automated test. So if I look at a test case specification, here I'm looking at a manual test case specification. By the way, our interface has changed slightly from last year. This is also applicable to server and data center instances where we've broken this down into different tabs so that we don't have a very long list of testing artifacts here or test related data. And what do I see in terms of test details? By the way, this is a test case. And if I scroll down, I do see that this particular test case is being used to test one story. If I was testing more, they would also show up here. I can also link in different stories or different issues that I want covered using the Jira link feature. One other thing I should mention is that a test case is just like any other Jira issue because it is a Jira issue. So if you want to clone it, if you want to move it, if you want to keep track of something on it, watch it, whatever you do with an Xray, with a Jira issue type, you can also do with a Xray issue type. Okay, and what do we see here is in terms of test details, it is of a manual test type. I do see that I have 3 test sets. This is an identical test case as I showed last year with action, data, and expected result. I can add more columns to this if I want. We can have up to 6 columns. Yes. Was there a question there? No, I'll continue. I have 3 test steps here. Now, if I scroll through or select these different tabs here, I do see that it has a precondition. It does not belong to any test set. We'll look at test sets in just a little while. It does belong to a couple of test plans in this case. And if I look at test runs, I have an empty list, means I have never executed this test in the past. Okay. If I look at a BDD test type, same type of structure here. The only thing that changes is that here in the terms of the test details, I am stating that it is a cucumber type of test or BDD. And I have placed here my scenario outline. This BDD tests within Xray are special because you can actually use it as the master repository. So I can edit the test case here or the Gherkin language steps directly within Xray. And it really depends how I set up my pipeline. So if I want to use Xray as the master repository, I will set up my CI/CD pipeline or my process in order to grab the feature file directly from Xray, run the tests, and then push the results back into Xray. If I want to use some external repository, that's fine also. All I have to do in that case is fetch the feature files from that external repository, which you will manage separately from Xray, and then push the results of those executions directly into Xray. If I look at test runs, let me see if I didn't run this in the past either. Okay. Now, if I look at a generic and structured type of test, so we've looked at the manual test type, BDD type of tests, and looking at a generic test type where most of the automated tests fall into, what do I see? Same basic structure here as with anything. The only thing that changes is the test details. And here I'm specifying that it is a generic type of test. And now in these type of tests, the logic or the specification of the test is most likely stored elsewhere. Maybe it's in your Java code, your JavaScript, your Ruby code, or in this case, in this particular example, it's in my robot scripts that I have, which are invoking Selenium. And Xray does need a way of identifying this particular test case. And this is where the definition comes in. Why is this necessary? When I push in test results into Xray, Xray will look for this definition. If it finds it, then it will basically add, well, let me change that. It will basically add additional test runs to the test run list here. Okay, so if I see here, I see that this has been executed in the past, and the last time it did run, it failed. If it does not find that definition, then what Xray does, it will create a test case for you. So it's actually one great way of uploading your test case definitions here is just run your automation framework, push the results into Xray. Xray the first time will not find any of these tests, it will just add them and also the test run. And the second time and all the other times you run these test cases, Xray will be able to find that and it will just add that additional test run into Xray. Okay. So let me continue on here. And let's see in terms of organizing test cases. Xray provides you with two ways in which you can organize your test cases. The first one is using the test repository. The test repository is a tree-like structure where a test case can belong to a single node on the tree that you decide to create. If you do not create any type of structure, then all of them will be in the root folder. That's basically how Xray handles this. You can also group test cases using test sets. Test sets are just a way of naming a group of test cases. There are other functionalities, of course, but the test case in this particular manner can belong to 0 or more test sets. So we've even noticed in the test cases that I showed you, they did not belong to any test set whatsoever. And you can mix and match these, so you're free to do this. Some people decide to place everything nicely into a directory structure. Some just use test sets, while others use a mixture of both. And there are other customers that we have that even use other ways of organizing test cases, such as Jira labels, and then doing a JQL search for those for those labels as an example. So let's go back to our presentation here, or I should say to the demo, and let me choose this one. I'll have to open up a new tab. And this is where I'm going into the testing board. If I click in testing board, it will take me to the last screen where I was. Here I'm in the repository. If I click here, and this is particular to cloud, I get to see additional features that I can dwell into in Xray. But this is what I want to show you, the test repository here. Now, it's telling me that I have 22 tests. I've already organized these into this directory structure. Most likely you will have thousands of tests. And all of the tests that I've shown you are already here in my demo. Directory. So one of the things that I can do here, I can create a test set. For example, let's say that I wanted to create a smoke test set. Well, I just simply come up here, create a test set, I create it, and then link in all the tests that I want. There's an easier way of doing that. If you just click here or right click it on a PC, I can create a test set with all the tests that are in my directory here. So it already knows that I want to create the test set. Simplifies your life, saves you some time. I can also multi-select if I want and do the same thing here. Maybe I just want a smoke test set with only these 3 tests in this case. There's also a great feature here. You can switch to flat view like you can also in the server and data center versions, where it will show you all the tests that you have, but grouped according to the directory structure that you've created here. Now, I can scroll and see all my tests here, so it's very simple for me. But most likely you will want to use the search feature or even the filtering capabilities where you may want to search for particular test cases based maybe on labels, or even use JQL to search for those test cases. Okay, so this is basically the repository. You can also see the test sets if I wanted to create test sets with particular for a particular group of tests in this case. So let's go back to the presentation here and let me show you how all of this fits together, at least up to the point of the repository. So if I consider, there are many ways of organizing your projects. This is what we call an all-in-one project organization approach, which means that within your Jira project, you also have your Xray issues. There are other ways of organizing this. You can check out our documentation, which has additional details into that. And for this particular project, I do have stories, I do have epics, I have also maybe some custom issue types, and you most likely have a series of tests. And now these series of tests can be linked to particular issues that you want to be covered with these tests. So as I did when I was linking in a test case to that particular story, all you have to do is just link these test cases. And remember that you can use the same test case to test several stories. So we encourage reusage quite a bit here. So, and all of these test cases will automatically be placed into the test repository, regardless if you want to organize them into a tree-like structure or not. And of course, you can also use test sets to group particular tests that you want. So instead of linking in a particular test case, I can link in a test set, which simplifies my life, because if I'm only choosing one issue, that's fine. If I'm choosing 10 or 20, maybe it's easier if I use a test set. And this is what Xray provides you with for organizational purposes. Now, when I want to go ahead, I could run the test right away or execute the test right away, but typically you will want to create a test plan. So if I take these 3 tests that I have here, or 2 tests and a test set, and I want to plan the execution of these tests, what typically is done, you create or use an existing test plan. And you basically link those test cases to that test plan. And this is what Xray provides you with for planning purposes. And if we go back into our demo here, let me just grab some of these tests that I have here, and I'm going to place them into an existing test plan simply because I've already configured that in my Jenkins environment. So I'm going to grab I think it was this one that I showed you. I think it was also, oh, the manual test, I'll include it, and also the BDD. And all I have to do here, well, I'm missing this one, sorry there. All I have to do here is just add them to a test plan or create a new test plan here. So I'm going to add these to an existing test plan. This is an issue picker. You can use search according to different Jira fields, or you can use JQL. I'm searching for test plans in this case. Now, since I'm preceding everything with a keyword demo, it's this one that I want. I'm adding those 3 test cases to this particular plan. Not adding, I should say linking. Okay, so there we go. Basically, that's what I did. So if I want to go back into and check the test plan, all I have to do here is just grab my test plans. It will take me to the last one. It was incidentally this one. Now, this is one particular view of the test plan. It does not look like a Jira issue. We'll come back to this. I actually like this view a lot better. It's simpler, but it doesn't provide you with all the fine-grained detail. Let me go into the issue type or the traditional Jira view issue to look at this test plan. So I'm looking at the test plan where we added these tests to. Once again, it is a Jira issue. I can assign it to someone who will be responsible for this. I can have a specific workflow if I want. And what do I see? I see that this particular test plan does have 9 tests in total. 1 has passed, 1 has failed, and 7 are still in the to-do state. Now, one of the important things here is that I'm looking at the execution result for this particular test within the context of this test plan. So maybe this particular test has been executed hundreds of times or thousands of times, but the last time I executed it and linked it or associated it to this particular test plan, it failed. Okay, so this is one way also of tracking the progress of your test cases. We also have another tab here, which is test executions. And here I see all the executions that have been carried out within the context of this particular test plan. So let me go back to the other view, which I find simpler, and I only view the traditional Jira like view when I want to see more details, such as the executions and so forth. What I see here, I'm looking at the same plan, but I do also have a way of organizing my test cases within this particular test plan. I've grouped them or according to this directory structure, which I created an automated and manual tests. We've seen other customers that even place components in here, place even users that will be testing. And why is this interesting? Because if I switch to flat view, I not only get the overall test execution status, but I also get the execution status for the tests, but grouped according to the directory structure that I've created. So for my automated tests, I have 1 test that has passed and 1 that failed. I do see that my manual tests, none of them have been executed, even though I only have 1, and I even have 1 that is not placed into any one of these directories. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a couple of these tests. I'll basically run the manual test and also one of the automated tests. If you have no preference, I'll just run the robot. If you prefer me to run the BDD or Gherkin language test, do let me know. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a test execution. So, but before I do that, since I'm in the test plan, let me go back to the presentation. Now, what we did here, we basically linked a couple of tests that we had directly to an existing test plan. And what I'm going to do is create a test execution. A test execution can have many tests within it. And a test execution is important within Xray for the simple reason that a test case is a specification. It is not the, let's call it the instantiation of a test case. It is at the test execution level that you specify additional properties regarding the execution of that test or the tests that are within that execution, such as, am I testing a specific version? Am I using a specific test environment? That's all done at the test execution level. And I can create, by the way, when you run the tests, Xray will create an internal structure which is a test run structure where it maintains all the test results, as well as metrics that we use to filter out reports for you also on coverage. And you can create as many test cases, test executions as you want with the same test cases, different test cases. Here we see that we're using the same test for two different executions. Well, maybe this one is for test environment A, and this one is for test environment Y. So this is a very important aspect because we're reusing these test cases, and then you'll be able to filter this out. So let's go into, and this is of course what Xray provides you for test execution purposes. So let's go back into the demo here, and directly from the plan, I'm going to create an execution. I could do this in the other view, but I find it easier here because all I have to do is just right click here and create the text execution. Since I only selected one, I'm just going to go ahead and create it. I'm going to give it a name here. I'm not going to put any additional information, just create that test execution. And let me go directly into that test execution. Once again, a test execution is like any other Jira issue. I do see that I only have one test in this test execution, so it would be something very similar to this one here. And I can go ahead and execute the test right away, but let me provide a bit more information here. So let me say that I'm going to test, in this case, it is version 1. You don't have to do this. This is optional, of course. And I'm going to be testing one of my specific test environments. Since we chose Chrome last time, let me choose Chrome again here. Okay, so there we go. So I'm testing. If I go ahead, and this is what your manual tester would do, since this is a manual test. By the way, I chose the test case that I showed you. Where was it? There it is, this manual test case. Okay, where we see these 3 test steps. And in the test execution test page here, I do see that my test environment is the Chrome environment. It is version 1. It's still in the to-do state. There are several other panels that I won't go into. This particular test execution will be affecting your covering this particular story that we looked at. For it had more, we'd also see them here. I did have a precondition. Here's the precondition. Well, sorry. Here's the precondition. Basic login instructions for my tester to log into the hypothetical bookshop. And here are the 3 test steps that we saw in the definition or the test case specification. And if I'm pretending to be a tester here, so I probably have have on a separate monitor here my web page or my bookstore, and it's asking me to select one of, or go into the top 10 and make sure that the top 10 books are visible. Let's say they are, so I'm going to pass this step. So you can see here that I passed the step. If I scroll back up to the top, it's showing me that this is now being executed by myself. Its status is executing. Any report that you create now would reflect the status, current time here in Portugal. And if I move on to the second step here, and let's pretend we have, similar to what we did last year, let's pretend we have a problem here. Now, it's asking me to select one of these books. Maybe I'm unable to do so. So I can start adding some comments in here. Okay, so unable to select Ace book. Okay, so I'm just going to add that comment in there. Maybe your testing policies or processes oblige you to provide some type of evidence. It could be a screenshot. It could be attaching a log file. And this is done by just adding evidence in here. If I could attach a file, what I'm going to do, something simpler, and just pretend that this button here, I don't have too many buttons. Do I have any buttons? Oh, I have a couple here. So I'm going to pretend that this button here is preventing me from selecting the book. All I have to do, I use the Windows snippet tool. And all I have to do is just paste it directly into the screen. There we go. And I can even be precise and say that this particular evidence belongs to step 2. And I'm just going to add that in. So I've added a comment. I provided some evidence. maybe I want to also link to an existing defect or create the defect. Defects are also configured on a project by project basis. So when configuring Xray, you also select which Jira issue type you want Xray to consider as a defect. Then you can have more than one, of course, but I've already chosen bugs. So here, instead of associating it to an existing defect, I'm going to create one from scratch. Xray will know right away that I want to create a bug in this particular project. Maybe you wanted this in a different project. Give it a name. Xray will pre-fill some information for you. So for example, here we do see that it's placing all the steps that I've gone through up to and including the step where I'm raising the defect from. I'm not going to put any additional information in here and just go ahead and create it. So I've created a defect that's linked to this particular test execution. And maybe I want to pass this because the defect that I found has nothing to do with what I'm trying to test. I just want to make it evident that there was raised from here, but I'm going to fail it. Now, failing a test step dictates that your test has also failed, and that's where we see the status here. So if I go back to my test plan, I will now see that I have another test that has failed. If I go into my other view, which I prefer, I think that is a simpler view, and even switch to flat view here, I do see that in terms of my manual tests, all of them have failed. Of course, I only have one in here. Okay, so that's how simple it is to execute manual test cases. Before I get into a process of showing you the automated test cases, let me also show you a new feature that we have within Xray. This was introduced a couple of months ago, which is data. We call them data sets. So you have parameterized test cases. This was not available before this, of course. Let me just see. It's actually this one. And let me show you this. Okay, so this is also a manual test case. But here I'm showing you this new feature that we have here. In terms of test details, I only have one test step. It's basically select a parameter here, cover book from whatever. But let me show you the data set that I'm using. And you can create these, you can import them. I'm basically creating two combinational or combinatorial, as our development team decided to call this, two parameters, which I'm combining with another set of parameters. I have soft covers and hard covers. I have, in terms of type of book, mystery, fiction, and technical. Okay, so what I see here, I'm just doing a combination of all these with a single test step. So I'm not going to execute this from within. Actually, I'll just run it directly from here. So instead of putting it into the test plan. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to execute this. So I'm showing you also several ways of creating executions here. And create this, I'll just put demo and data set. Okay, data set. And test environment, I'll also say it's for the Chrome test environment so that later on we can see it, and also version 1. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and create it. There we go. So I've created also testing for this. But what do we see? Remember that we only had one test step. But if I scroll down, I do see all the combinations here. So all of a sudden, what do I see here? And selecting a soft cover book from the mystery category. And I should be able to see that in the shopping cart. Of course, you could use parameters all over the place, but I think you get the idea. Here I'm selecting a hardcover book from the mystery category and so forth. So I could go ahead and pass these tests, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass them all so we don't have everything failing in this case. Okay, give me a second here. And passing. I didn't pass it. Sorry, there we go. So pass it. And I'll also pass this. And then these ones, I can just go ahead and pass it. By the way, there's an easier way of doing this. I can override everything, just come up here and say everything passed. So it will pass all of them. Okay, this is really up to you. So all of a sudden, I do see that I have quite a bit of versatility with manual test cases by using parameterized tests. So this is something new that we didn't have in last year's session. And it's also available for server and the data center versions there. So let me go back into, where was I? The testing board. And what I'm going to do now is run one of the automated test cases. For this, I have Selenium running in my PC here. Everything is actually running in my PC. Everything's in a virtual box here. And what I'm going to do is run a robot test. This robot test is basically using Selenium, and it's checking to see if we have pricing information within our own Xray website. Now, we do not have that pricing information, so the test should fail, unless our marketing team has meanwhile already changed that. So what I'm going to do here is just, sorry, let me just escape here and do this. Okay, well, first of all, let me show you how I've configured this within Jenkins. And I'm using plugins. You can also use the APIs. Our plugins use the APIs directly, or the REST API directly, which is nice to know because there are no hidden features. For cloud, you also have GraphQL if you want to use that interface. So let me just show you how simple this is, especially using the plugins. And it's just as simple using the APIs. I'm basically sparse checking my robot files from my Git repository. I'm running robot on them. I only have one test, so we'll only see one test. And then I'm pushing the results. This is a particular plugin that we have for Jenkins. I'm pushing the results back into my cloud instance using the robot XML. Now we have several formats here. If I take a step away from the demo here and come into the documentation, all our documentation is online here. We'll also be able to provide you with links for this. And if I look at documentation here and automation, testing frameworks, these are all the testing frameworks that we're able to support at the moment. Everything from JUnit, TestNG, XUnit, all the way up to our own JSON format, just in case you have your own custom frameworks that you want to push the results into Xray. All you have to do is convert it into these. If you're using these, they will be ingested automatically by Xray. In this case, I'm using robots, so I'll be using this particular framework. So if I go back into this, I do see that I'm using the robot XML. Here are the other formats. This is why I took the liberty of going into the documentation to show you that. I'm pushing this result file into this particular project, also associating it to this plan that we were looking at. I'm specifying that it is for version 1, not even specifying any test environment. And that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this. And before I do this, let me just shrink this a bit so that we can see Selenium invoking the browser or popping up the browser. I'm going to force the build. Okay. And we should see Selenium popping up. A second. This is if I did launch my Selenium. Let me check here. There it is. If it fails, then no problem. Okay. Actually, it's blocked. Forgot the firewall. Okay, no worries about that. So I'll just continue. I'll show you the result afterwards anyway. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is raise this. This will fail, saying that I had some problems. I think I know what's happening. I didn't update my drivers. Oh, no problem. This is what you get with a live demo, even remotely. Okay. So let's go ahead over to our testing board and look at a past result, which is basically the same thing. So if I have a look at going to my executions, past executions, and scroll down a bit, and let's say it's this one. So for example, this one was a test that I ran back in May, should have the same thing. Let's just have a look at this execution. It will be identical to as if I executed it today, okay? And let me check this out and look at test runs here, okay? And if I look at the details, what do I see? Basically that this test, I had the same problem here. Okay, so I would see all the results that are pushed in my Xray environment. So this is something that, sorry, I forgot to update the driver, so I won't be able to show you that. And this test here, I have already deleted all of this there. So that's, and I actually forced this, yeah, that's why. And you get to see all the results that are here. Maybe I can show you some other result that has failed from some other tests, but we'll leave that to the end. Okay, so let's continue on and let's see, grab my presentation once again. Okay, now we did run a couple of manual tests. We attempted to run an automated test, sorry, because I didn't have the driver there running. Actually, let me do the following. I'll run some other type of test. Okay, maybe the BDD test, which is also a great test to run, and show you that, and also show you the difference in terms of configuration there. So let's see, it's this one, and I'll show you the configuration here, because here we're also using a pre-built plugin. And what do I see here? Also checking out my Cucumber or the executable part from my Git repository, doing a bit of cleanup. Here's my pre-built plugin. I'm basically grabbing all the feature files for test cases that belong to a specific filter. Here I have the filter ID. So if I go back into Xray, sorry, into Jira here and look at my filters, Cucumber tests, we see here, I only have one test. So this is basically a JQL or a filter, and it's returning one test. It was the one that I showed you, and it's filter 10,002. So I'm grabbing everything that this filter returns, grabbing those feature files, placing them into Xray. I'm running Cucumber on it, and then I'm pushing the results back into Xray using, in this case, Cucumber multipart, which means that I will also have a part of it, JSON meta file here with additional information. Here I'm also associating it to the same test plan, and also specifying that it is for version 1. And let me go ahead and run this. Okay, so let's build that. There we go. And it failed. And it failed for one reason. If I check my Cucumber test here and look at the test details, I'm actually provoking an error. So this is adding books to my shopping cart. If I have 3 and I add 4, I should get 7 and not 0. So I'm provoking an error in the test specification. Now, going back into Jenkins, and you could be using any other type of a CI/CD tool or not even use one at all. Let me just have a look at the console output. So it's telling me that I already know what this stands for. Do not worry about it. It created a new execution, 12, it's so small, 1288. So if I go into my my project here, and I'll just go through here and use the testing board here, will take me to the test plan. I now see that I have 3 tests which are failing here. If I switch to flat view, I will also see that that BDD test has failed. I can't see too many details here, but if I go into the other view here, I will certainly see that. Okay. Oh, there we go, test executions. 1288. So this one was created by this particular execution of this automated test. And if I go into this execution, I will see that I only have 1 test. There it is. If I look at details, something that we weren't able to see in the other one because I don't have my drivers up and running. What do I see? I see the scenario outline that I tested and everything related to that execution. This is basically what Cucumber is pushing out. And here we see the reason why it's failing. It was expecting 0 because I forced that there, but it actually got the correct answer back. So I see this here. Okay, so this is an automated test case. So let's go back into the presentation then, and let's have a look at reporting. And we'll look at some of these aspects or reportings from what we just did. In terms of reporting, Xray provides you with operational reports. And this is, you basically have to have a Jira ID also and or Jira login, and you'll be able to interact with these reports. Here you'll be able to see overall coverage, traceability, test plans, and the finest written report, which is test runs. We also have something which is called a document generator. They are user-defined reports based on templates, code snippets that you can insert into Word, Excel, and PDF, and I'll show you also that in just a little while. And we also provide you with gadgets for your dashboards. Now, these gadgets you can use Jira filters, you can use grouping, you can customize some of the properties there, such as looking at specific test environments or maybe specific test plans or versions, such as you did when looking at the test execution status at the story level or the issue that you're covering. So let's go back into our demo here, and let's go also once again using the testing board here. Okay, and what I'm going to see here is using the testing board and the drop down menu here, or slide menu. I see reports here. So let's go to the test coverage report first. And in the test coverage report, remember that you're able to filter according to filters or using filters that we've already seen, maybe different Jira fields that you want to look at. You can group this according to different components, resolution. But there are several ways of grouping this. I'm just going to generate this, even though I don't have too many executions within this. Now, this is a very simple yet quite powerful report. For example, it's telling me that for my account components, I have 3 requirements which are passing all their tests, 2 which have not been executed yet, and 1 which is uncovered. And operational, because I can actually drill down and I do see all the tests. So for example, in this case, I do have 2 test cases which have, this one has 2 tests and this one has this requirement has 2 tests, and this requirement has 6 tests associated, and they haven't all been executed yet. So this is why this status is not okay. And if we look at this uncovered, we do see that this particular story does not have any tests associated to it. Maybe you're a product manager and you want to see this by priority. Would I release this? No, because I have 1 high priority requirement which is failing its tests. So I wouldn't do that. Other types of reports, and probably one of my favorite ones is traceability. Traceability here, I'm not going to put any filters in here also. And traceability, well, first of all, you have your requirements, you have your tests, you have your test runs and defects that are associated with it. Let me just scroll very quickly down to the bottom. And we're also able to report at the epic level. So for example, this particular epic, if I expand it, I do see that the status is not run. And why is that? Well, because I have a total of 4 requirements within this epic, but this particular one has 2 tests which have not been executed yet. And this is why you have the not run status for this. If I scroll back up to the issue that we were looking at, and this is precisely why I do use or precede everything with a keyword demo. This is what we were doing in this session. So we were testing this particular story, and we did see that the pricing link that we did carry out, it did not complete. The drivers were not there, but the last time I ran it, it failed. We did run this manual test case. And remember, we even created a defect. So we get complete traceability from the defect to the test run, to the test itself, to the issue that you're testing, and eventually to the epic, if it belongs to an epic. And we also see For example, the other test, I don't know, there it is. So this BDD test also failed. Okay, we did not create any defects or anything like that, but this is when it was executed just a little while ago. Okay, now other type of reports that you get are the document generated reports. And for this, let me show you one of these reports here. And for what am I going to do here? I'm just going to go and grab any example here. So I'm going to go to the testing board. There are several reports that you can generate. For example, I've already generated one. This is there we go. This is using one of our standard templates. You can grab templates from our template library. You can create your own. You can modify these. This is for the same test plan that we just ran. And it's basically, and you can modify this. You can modify the layout, the content that's in there, the level of detail. And here we're seeing that this particular test plan at this time did have a pass ratio of 28%. We see all the tests that were within this plan at the time, and also actually the robot test when this time did pass when I generated this, and also test run details. And I think I showed this one last year also. This was done for as an example for a pharmaceutical, and they required hard copy sign-off. So it was just a matter of adding an approval page at the end. But last time, or last year, I did not show you the template itself. So let me do this time. I'm in the test. There are many different reports that you can grab from using document generator. So I'm in the repository here, and I see that I have these, 6 or 7 tests in my demo directory. What I'm going to do this here is I'm going to use document generator to generate an offline test specification report. And what here, I'm just going to select, I can select different reports here. It's an offline test report, and I'm using Excel in this case, not PDF. I'm going to export this. I'll just wait for it to appear, download, and there we go. And let's have a look at it. Okay. So here is what was generated in this specific document generated run. And these are all the tests that I have within that demo directory. And I have all the specification and so forth, the test steps, even the test steps that we went through, and so forth. Also the examples for the BDD test and so forth. Now, okay, that's fine. But how do I generate this? Is this simple to use the document generator or not? Well, for that, let me close this. Let me go into the project settings here and go into, oh, not that, go into Xray settings. Also gives me a bit of time to drink a bit of water. And let's have a look at this menu here, which is document generator. By the way, many things you can configure here. I think I showed some of these last year at the server level, but this year, let's have a look at document generator. So actually, it's the first one, offline test report. This is what we were using to generate that. So I'm going to not edit, but download this template. Let's have a look at it. There we go. So these are the code snippets that you place in here. So you, and this will generate, as you can see, the report that was there. Xray basically iterates through these code snippets, places the information that you want. Everything is very well documented. There is, instead of grabbing the definition, maybe you want the priority, you can also grab that from here. So it's very versatile. But try to imagine the power that you can have with this. So for example, here, these are filling in these fields, but you can actually have pre-calculated fields in here. For example, you could say that, well, I'm unable, there we go. There we go. So you could have something like this, if it made any sense, of course. This field plus this field, because maybe you want it in some type. It's going to give me an error, of course, but you get the idea. So maybe you want to generate particular charts or graphics regarding some information that you're grabbing from test runs. You get the idea here. Here I'm just exporting a test report, but if you were exporting in Excel, let's say test run statuses and so forth, there are many powerful things that you can do here. So this is one of the reasons why our customers also choose and opt to go for Xray is its reporting capabilities are quite extensive. One other thing that I'd like to show you is the gadgets here. And for this, let me go back into Xray. And in terms of gadgets that we provide you with, just wait for them to load. There we go. We've seen this type of report over here. It's overall test coverage, but here I'm looking at all my projects. This is actually the same gadget as this one here. But this one, I'm just looking at high priority requirements. This is great because I can actually configure these. I'm using a specific filter. So you go also see the power behind this. And of course, you can filter this according to the analysis and scope that we've seen this type of filter. Maybe you just want to see a specific test environment and so forth. So this is quite powerful also. Other type of gadgets, overall test results, the requirements list in their latest execution status, test plans, test executions, the test lists, list of all the tests that I have, and the latest execution also. And one great thing here is that all of Xray is based on Jira issue types. So here I'm seeing that, for example, for my test results, I still have 4 tests that are in the to-do state. 3 which are failing. Well, I'm going to choose the failing ones here. I can click there. This actually takes me to a Jira filter. And these are all the 3 tests that are failing. From here, I can use standard Jira features such as bulk change. Maybe I want to reassign them, or maybe raise the priority, or send up some type of notification that this really needs to see, someone needs to see this. So there is great power in just having Xray based on Jira issues. You get all the underlying features that you get from Xray also. Okay, so basically, I tried to keep this down to an hour so that we have a bit of time for Q&A. I exceeded a bit, sorry about that, but I'm all ears and here to answer questions, and let me know if you found this useful also for the cloud version this time.
So we do
I
have
think you're
one
muted.
question.
Oh, there you go. Yep, go ahead.
If I see the chat, we have one question from Alok, where he has asked, could you please share any metric or KPI that developers or testers use, or you have seen to measure the performance of doing testing?
Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question here. Could you please share any metric or KPI that developers, testers use to have seen to measure the performance of doing testing? So it's not even related to Xray, it's in testing itself. But the only thing I can provide you with is the following. We've had an independent study carried out on the benefits, of using Xray. And it was carried out by the Forrester Group. And they interviewed many of our customers and saw what the costs were before having a test management solution, and what the costs were or the advantages were after having it implemented for a while. And these range from small customers to large customers. And even though results vary, the return of investment is as short as, I believe, 6 months And in other cases, it's 16 months. I don't know if I'm mixing those two numbers up. So even if it's 6 or 16, in the long run, you always get to see benefits in terms of costs. Now, in terms of operational benefits, while you probably use Jira to manage your requirements and defects. If you have a true testing policy in which you have your tests associated or linked to those requirements right from the start, when your developer develops these tests, your tester is testing them in parallel or at the end, really depends how you have your processes set up. Your developer, without even interacting with the tester, will be able to see the test coverage. So if anything is failing, he'll know right away, even before he waits for maybe a formal report regarding the QA team's findings. So they'll be able to correct or start correcting the problem right away. So there are no specific metrics, at least that I'm aware of, because it really depends on the processes that each company has, what their testing practices currently is like, if they're advanced, if they have no testing whatsoever. So I can't really share something like that, but I do know of the benefits at least. Hopefully I answered partially your question there, okay?
Do we have any more questions?
Yes, Dipanshu. I have got around 4 questions with me. So, Helder, basically, I am advocating Xray since last 2 years, and I have successfully rolled out for 10 programs in last 2 years. So basically, I am a personal user of the tool actually. So I do all kinds of implement all the best practices that was being shared by your slide. So most of the features we use it, but a few of the questions I get from the customers is like, can we customize Xray issue types like the test execution, and change the workflow?
You can customize them. Remember in the beginning, I said that you can add custom fields and so forth. You can have specific workflows for executions or for test cases. I'll give you an example, a test case specification. You can have a workflow that is as simple as design, ready, and deprecated. And that workflow can have authorization or approval processes in between. So you'd be designing your test case. When it's ready to be tested, you'd submit it to approval or something like that.
Right.
You can have Xray prevent test cases which are not in certain states of that workflow from being executed. So the test case that I did run, or the 2 test cases that I did run, I have no specific limitation or restriction, but I can actually go into Xray and state, and here I'm going to bring this up and going to go back into the reports, or I should say the configuration here, and just show you this. This is an example, okay? And Xray settings. Hold on, and it should be under miscellanea. So I can actually say disallow tests which are in the workflow status of maybe to do. So any of my test cases that are in the to do state, if I try to run them, they will not, Xray will simply say, no, you can't run this. If they are automated test cases, your API, when we're pushing the results into Xray, will return with an error because this is not ready. Or maybe the test case is deprecated. You no longer want to see it. So maybe I'm adding also the done. I'm just giving you an example here. You could have your own names in here. So anything that is into the to do or done state, you would not be able to execute it. Now, this is some of the things that you can do aside from also adding your custom components within those test cases. But for filtering purposes, if I want to check out the test results based on a specific component that you've added, that will probably be not be possible, because we do our filtering based on the characteristics or the testing artifacts that are part of Xray. So if you add another one, you can filter results according to that, but you can't get, for example, coverage based on a specific component, because that won't, we aren't able to calculate it. You can certainly list all of them, but we will not be able to calculate coverage based on that, such as the test environment or something like that. So yes, if what you do today with any Jira issue type, adding components, adding different labels, you can also do that with Xray. So in terms of flexibility, configuration, it is quite powerful there. I'm not going to say you can do everything, but you can do the majority of things that you expect. Did I answer your question there, Sandeep? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my bad. So yeah,
No problem.
So the next question that I mean quite regularly comes is like we have developed some tool around Xray to upload the test cases in bulk. So whatever template you follow for writing the manual test, that tool will basically upload that test cases in the Xray in that I mean hierarchical form with the folders and all stuff. So basically import is possible. So what are the possibilities of exporting the test in bulk with test steps? So I have seen we can export individual tests, but if I need to export the same in bulk with the test steps, so that was a limitation.
Correct. But remember the test, the report that I generated with document generator? Here I'm actually exporting just the ones from my demo directory. This was not even a planned question, but actually this is great, because I believe this answers this. So here I can see that this particular test case does have, which is the one that we were looking at. I'm also exporting the action, all the different test steps. So this is one way of doing it. If you don't like this format, just change it. We're using the template and just have what you want. So this is one way of exporting all your test cases directly. We know that sometimes we get customers that ask for this because they want to archive for some offline reason, or they want to guarantee that if they decide to move away from Xray, which we know some people do, fortunately not too many, but there is a way of exporting your test cases into something else so that you can import them into another tool. We're providing you with this because we are also confident that you will not move away that easy, because Xray is a great tool. But if you find something else that is that suits you better, or your processes, we're not preventing you. We know of other tools that it is very difficult to export test cases. No, we give you that flexibility. And not only do we give you that flexibility, we also give you the possibility of exporting in exactly the format that you want. If you want this in a Word document, that's fine. You know, exporting test cases, it's probably easier if you export this into Excel, and then from there you can maybe save it as CSV or XML, whatever you want. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So the next question is,
okay, go ahead.
I mean, just give me, next couple of minutes.
No, take your time.
So today I got Helder actually, so live, so I thought of shooting him too many questions. Yeah. So the next question is for audit purpose. Like if my team, so I have been working with teams who are geographically in different locations, and I'm working as Scrum of Scrum. So in order to have an audit, like I need to extract the report, like for how many executions my test evidences are attached or not. So
you can. Okay, for example, the report that I was showing you, just so I don't have any examples with snapshots in here. I think this template doesn't even have snapshots. But
I think
for example,
I have raised a ticket also for this in Xray.
But
So
you can, if you want, do send me a message regarding which ticket it is. I'll see why. Hopefully that's been answered, or maybe it hasn't been answered according to your satisfaction. But you can include artifacts in here. Of course, if they are files, it will just be a link to that file. If they're snapshots, images, they will be included in this. I'm just using this as an example in this report. If they are, let's say, a log file, a video file, then most likely you will get a URL here, which will point you to the correct place. Of course, if you distribute this and the person doesn't have access to that URL, they won't be able to see it, but nonetheless, it will also be there. Okay. Have a look also at our documentation here regarding the document generator, which should be able to also provide you with additional information, all the test snippets or code snippets that you're able to use, which should help you out in this case, especially for exporting the artifacts, okay? Or the evidences, I should say.
Pushpakant, last question, okay?
No worries.
Yeah. So for test types like BDD, so we often see, like, when we write the steps as an user, I want to log in, or someone write as a user is logged in. So I have seen in other tools we have got something called some algorithm of NLP, natural language processing, being implemented here. Like if I have written a statement with all the Gherkin's keyword given, when, then, so when I write the next statement in my next test, I get a predictive text. So do Xray have such plans to implement that?
No, not at the moment. We actually, even though we support Cucumber, and the capabilities in cloud for Cucumber are not as extensive as what they are in server, because you also have a step library in server and data center, and we do not have it yet in cloud. It will be available later on this year, but there are no plans on taking that further than what we have today, which is editor, syntax highlighting, but it will not do semantic checking or any AI. For that, you have the possibility of using external tools and just using those and then pulling them back in. Just a test result. So you'd be using Xray as a test management tool, but not as the master repository of your test definition. Okay, but it is an interesting question. Our roadmap is open. Anyone can contribute to it, add new features, request new features, and our development team takes into consideration the issues that have the most traction. So this could be a very interesting feature, but if only you and your colleague and maybe someone on the other side of the world is interested in that feature, it will probably not see the light of day unless we see that it is, wow, this is an extremely innovative feature that will set this product in another completely different league. Okay, so we do take every feature into consideration. Nonetheless, it has to be what our customers are looking for, unless it is one of those groundbreaking features which we will invest into it, even though not too many customers will be looking at. Okay.
Thank you for all the answers. Thank you.
Okay, you got it.
I've got one question. Many customers, we also help many customers adopting test management tool. And they often ask, how can I identify the defect density or defects identified in production environment or defects identified during the testing phase? How can we generate these sort of reports?
Well, you can use, remember that defects come from some type of test execution. So yes. Unless it's ad hoc or exploratory testing. which we also have an application for. What I see that you could, hopefully I understood the question correct, is you have different environments, test environments. And even though it says test environment, one could be production, could be a live environment, while the other one could be a test. So when you're carrying out the test, someone has identified something, so you carry out the test. Maybe it's just an exploratory test, but you want to also manage it within Xray. And you just select, I'm carrying this out in the live environment, test environment. So that afterwards, when you want to look for specific test, and it will fail, of course, you will look for results, for executions for that specific test environment. If you also associate the defect in the, well, it's easier if I do this, in the traceability report, you will also see that defect there.
I do. What I remember is on server, you have got multiple gadgets available over the dashboard wherein you can configure and generate these reports. But I don't see those gadgets available on cloud. So that's the reason I asked this question.
Maybe we can take it offline, but the only gadget that I know that we do not have, they are there. First of all, gadgets are slightly different in server and data center because it's not our imagination that we want to do things different. It's what Atlassian allows us to do. For example, in server, in the Scrum board, you can actually have the coverage, while in cloud, you cannot have the coverage because Atlassian does not provide us a way of doing that yet. As soon as they do, we will certainly put it there. Now, in terms of gadgets, I know there are some gadgets, such as the trend, which is the testing trend or historical, which is not there because we don't have that data available. So we can't provide you with that gadget. The rest are basically the same, just maybe different formats, different way of presenting that to you. But do let me know which ones you are missing. And I will certainly get in touch with our development team and see what the reason is. Some are technical reasons. Atlassian does not provide us a mean. Some might be, okay. We also keep metrics when using Xray. Server, data center, you can opt in to giving us metrics. We do not keep any of the information, but we know, look, there are so many tests being manual tests, there are so many gadgets that are being used, this type of gadget. And if we see that some gadgets simply are not used, then we may stop supporting it or maybe not release it in the future and concentrate on other ones. But do get that list to me and I will certainly check that out. Okay.
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for Helder?
I just have one question. This is Kiran Kumar.
Go ahead, Kiran.
Yeah. So is it okay? I can talk here. No problem.
Yes.
Or should I proceed? Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, hey Helder. Like I just wanted to know, like at an organization level, we are using Xray. We have just started. So what is the kind of training, etc., which would be possible? I mean, would there be someone from Xray who would be supporting? Because I know that there is something called Academy. .xray.app, getxray.app. Some of the videos are playing, some of them are just getting stuck, etc. But then I've just been going through, but there is a kind of enterprise level requirement. Everyone wants to get into this. And we have also certain issues because people are using Postman and they've been asking me, we have not been able to integrate Postman. And with the various data types, I mean, there are questions like, if we have the various data types like Xray test, test set, test plan, all of them are at the same level as story type or issue type. I mean, is there no hierarchical classification, etc.? So, there are many questions, and with manual, it is fine. I've done the execution, etc. But let's say I don't have CI/CD pipeline yet because our CI/CD pipeline is in GitLab. and it takes a while to set up the YAML actually, because it takes some time. But then, like, if I don't have, I mean, how would I integrate with the existing? I mean, if I have like maybe like Postman, etc. I mean, how would I? I mean, yeah, those
Okay.
are the overall questions I have.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, first of all, there are various questions, and thanks a lot for pointing this out. You mentioned that some videos are getting stuck. I would greatly appreciate that there's a feedback option there. Do provide, my colleague Sophia will look into that. She manages that area. But if I know what problems you're having, we will certainly do our best to improve that area. So in terms of training, we have optional services, which is premium onboarding, which will have our solutions architect guiding you through the process. Now, they will not do the work for you. They're there to hold your hand as you are setting up Xray, making sure that you're doing it probably in the best of following best practices and so forth. Do reach out to us, and we are able to provide that directly. Now, training. We do not provide training ourselves. We do have partners. We have partners in India, and also in I don't know if we have any in Singapore, but nonetheless, we do have partners around the world, and they carry out professional services, consulting work, and even online, face-to-face training if necessary. If you need that, do get in touch with us, and we will put you in contact with any of those partners. But that would be an interaction afterwards between you and the partners, and we just provide you with the contacts there. Now, other things that you mentioned. One thing you mentioned was about Postman. One of the things that I find easiest to do is, since I'm in cloud, and I come in here and I just put in Postman. Okay, so developing and using Postman, we do have quite a number of articles. You probably already went through them with examples and how to use this and how to get into, push these results into Xray. All of these things basically use the APIs. You can use the plugins if you're using a tool such as Jenkins or Bamboo, which we have plugins for. If not, use the APIs directly. And the APIs, and sorry for scrolling here, and the APIs are here. You can see the REST API and the GraphQL API. You did mention something about GitLab. I do have an example. It's an old example here. I'm very sorry for this, but I also have YAML in here. And since we're using Cloud, I will show you. At this one, it's very typical. I'm just building and then pushing the results into Xray. So for Cloud, this is the only thing that you need. You need, and this is using the API directly. Right. It's an authentication call, and then another call, which will basically push the result into Xray, the result file. Here I'm using the output file. I'm also associating it to the same test plan that I had. I should try to make sure that this is working so I could show you also this. But nonetheless, I'm basically authenticating myself and pushing the result into Xray. And that's it. So in terms of the setup that you would need within your pipelines, if you already in your GitLab pipelines, in your YAML file, if you already have that set up to run your test cases, then you already have most of the work done. The only thing that you need is basically authenticate yourself against that solution. Also, make sure that you're generating results in one of the formats that we do support, and then push the results into Xray. Okay, so hopefully that gave you some ideas here, how simple it is also to push this in. Of course, this is also a trivial example. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and the GitLab, the Docker setup is already there. I mean, probably, this curl, I mean, this kind of things, I need to script it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can come back to the video if you want. I can also share this with you, but it's basically what you have in the APIs. So if I
Right.
go into the APIs here, authentication, for example, and that call that you saw is
Right.
exactly the same one that I'm using here. And here are some examples. Okay.
Right. Right.
And here I'm using the command line URL. Okay.
Right. Sure. I'll try that out. Yeah. Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Do we have any more questions? No. Okay, Elder, thanks a lot for taking out time this weekend to provide us in-depth information of Xray and answering all the queries. And
you're very welcome. I enjoyed it again.
we have enjoyed too, and this has been a really informative session.